Okay, this is lesson 11. Lots and lots and lots of rules today, okay? I want you to stick right with me, okay? And let's go through this, okay? So here are all the rules right here. And pretty much it's all the rules that we just went through when we did this activity, okay? Okay, so this first one right here, when you multiply and the bases are the same, you add them. So look at the guy on the right, you go 2 plus 3 is a 5, okay? When you divide, you subtract them, okay? So look at this guy. You've got r to the 9th over r to the 2nd. Where do you have more r's on the top? How many more? 7 more. And they would be left on the top, okay? This next rule, power to a power, you guys came up with that. You're supposed to multiply those together, okay? You guys, this next one right here, all this is power to a power. So see right here how it says a plus b? I want you to just put 1s in those. If there's no exponent, it's a 1. And then power to a power tells you to multiply. So 1 times m is m, b to the 1 times m is m. So you just take them separately and multiply them, okay? So look at this guy right here. You guys, this is 2 to the 1st and c, and then a c to the 1st. And just like she said over here, they're separate. They're 2 separate things. Don't commingle those. So the c, or pardon me, the 2 is raised to the 1 times 4, which is a 4. The c is raised to the 1 times 4, which is a 4. 2 to the 4th is a 16, and there's your answer. Okay? Okay, look at the next one. You can't have negative exponents in your answer. If you have a negative exponent on the top, you pull it down to the bottom and make it a positive. If your negative exponent is on the bottom, you pull it up to the top and make it a positive. It's easy. Look at this one right here. The 3 is fine because that exponent is a 1. It's the x that's the problem. So you bring the x to the negative 4th down. It becomes a positive 4. The 3 stays on top. Done. Who says I got it? Let's see. Great. Okay, next one. If you divide something by itself, you go m minus m, which is 0, and then anything to the 0 is a 1. Okay, so remember that rule. Here's this little expression right here. X to the 0 is a 1, so that's just 1 over 4. Okay, all right, here we go. I'm going to slow down a little bit. Question A. Everybody freeze right there. We're going to talk about it for a second. I'm multiplying those things together. I am not adding those things together. How do I know that I'm not adding? Just shout that out. There'd be a plus in the middle if I was adding, right? There'd be a big plus right inside of there, which there's not. So that means I'm just multiplying, okay? So everybody go, 4 times 2 is 8. And then on the x's, I have 4 and 3. Try not to look back at the rules and try to just remember. What do I do to the 4 and the 3? Do I add, subtract, or multiply? What do I do? Add them. 4 plus 3 is 7. Highlight your answer. Done. That's all you have to do. Okay? Look at the next one. I'm also multiplying. A negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 3 is 12. On the x's, you have 1 and 2 for a total of, everybody shout that out. 3 is correct. Good job, you guys. Thank you for answering. On the y's, you have 1 and 3 for a total of, tell me, 4. And the only z's are right there at the end. There's my answer. Piece of cake. Okay? Next one. Write this question off to the side for me, please. Is the negative squared? Don't answer the question. Is it squared? So is this negative 10 multiplied by negative 10? And by the way, I saw a lot of groups doing an x. I would not do an x. I think that's super confusing because truly when I was looking at one of the groups, I was thinking it was the variable x. So I would do that. Okay, but it's okay. I think I'd probably figure it out. This is a negative 10, or is it a negative 10 times 10? So is it A or is it B? It's one or the other. Which one is it? B. It is B. So is the negative squared, everybody? Yes or no? No, it's not. Okay, take your pencil and just very lightly cross over that. So when you go through your notes for the next quiz, then it's all done. So the answer is you have one negative, so my sign will be a negative, and 10 times 10 is 100, and that's my answer. Okay? Okay, question D. Okay, look right here, guys. You have a 2, an x, and a y. The 2 is to the first, the x is to the first, and the y is to the second. So you have a 2 to the 1 times 3 is 3. You have an x to the 1 times 3 is 3, and you have a y to the 2 times 3 is 6. Is that answer fully simplified? No. What is that? What do I have to do? 2 to the third is an 8. X to the third, y to the 6th. That's your answer, and you're done. Who says this is easy? Raise your hand. Yay. It's because you guys are so smart. Okay, look at E. 12 and 15, I'm going to reduce that. What goes into both 12 and 15? 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So on top I have a 4, and on bottom I have a 5. Look at my D's. 4 on top and 4 on bottom. What happens to my D's? They just go away, right? F's. 3 on top, 1 on bottom. Where do I have more F's? On the top. How many more do I have on the top? 2 more. Look at your G's. 5 and 3. More on top or more on bottom? More on the top. How many more on the top? 3 more. That's my answer. Easy. Okay, question F. Now, you have 3 things in there. Guys, look. You have a 5 to the first, an x to the third, and a y to the first. Do not think of the 5 and the x to the third as together. They're separate. I love that word she used. It's separate. So 5 is to the, what do I do to the 1 and the 2? Multiply, add, subtract. What do I do? Multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. X to the 2 times 3 is 6. Y to the 1 times 2 is 2. Am I done? What do I do? 25. So it's 25 x to the 6th over y to the 2nd, and we're done. Okay? Question G. Okay, everybody freeze right here. The second I look at it, a couple of things are really shouting out at me. Okay, everybody look right here. Don't go ahead, okay? What's one thing that's really sticking out? I see the negatives, but I also see a 0. I'm going to take care of that. So look right here. Why do the zeros a 1? I can just get rid of it because it's multiplied by 5 to the negative second, x to the negative 3. If something's multiplied by 1, the 1 doesn't change it. So it's just gone. Okay? Now I have negative exponents. Are those negative exponents on the top or are they on the bottom, everybody? They're on the top or bottom? They're on the top because there's a fraction. So now they need to be on the bottom. So on the bottom, I have a 5 to the positive second and an x to the positive third. Some people just say that's it. And then they'll say that that answer is 25x to the third. And it makes me sad because I feel like I know that they know what they're doing. But what did they forget in this step right there? That stuff is actually on the bottom, right? So what's on the top? A 1. So your answer is not 25x to the third. It's 1 over. That stuff is on the bottom. Who says, I gotcha? Let me see. You guys are so smart. Okay, this one. People look at it and go, whoop, my answer's 1. Done. Next problem. There is a 1 in there, right? This is 1. But then it's finish my sentence. What do I have to do? Multiply it by 3a. And 1 times 3a is 3a, and now I'm done. So it's not the whole thing to the 0, it's just that part of it. Okay, question I. We're back to multiplying, but now we've got some negative exponents. So a positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times 4 is 12. A to the first and a to the first. Subtract, multiply, or add. What do I do? Add. And now look at your B's. You guys just said add, right? But it just happens to be subtract. Add and subtract are under the same umbrella for me. I just say combine so people don't get confused. Anyway, when you combine a +4 and a -3, what do you get? +1. That's my answer right there. I'm done. Okay, question J. What's screaming at you? The negative. Is the 3 a problem? Does the 3 need to move? Why not? It doesn't have a negative exponent, right? It's just the x that's the problem. So the x to the -2 comes up and becomes an x to the +2, and then I'm done. So on the top I have an x to the 2nd, on bottom I have a 3, and I'm good to go. Okay, look at K. Let me show you what people do. Freeze right here on K and let me show you what people do. They say, look at the A's, 3 on top, 2 on bottom. That leaves me 1 on the top. Can I do that? No. If you have negatives, the second you see those negatives, fix them. What do I mean fix them? Move them. Yes. The a to the -2 comes up and becomes an a to the +2. The b to the -4 comes down and becomes a b to the +4. 12/4, what's that equal to? 3. And then the a's tell me add, multiply, or subtract those exponents. Add those and get a 5. Look what people do. They'll say, and then on the bottom, I have a 4b to the 4 + 1, which is 5. And that's wrong. What did that person do? They forgot that they already evaluated 12/4 and got a 3. So they saw that 4 and they wrote it, but they already took care of it. So don't do that. Maybe a way to avoid that would be to go like that and make it a 3. Then you won't forget. Okay. Question L. What's screaming at you? Tell me. The negatives. Stick right here with me for a second. Look right here. Is this right there a problem? Should I take the -4, pull it up, and make it a 4? Why not? It doesn't have a negative exponent. It has a negative sign. Who cares? That's not a problem. It's the exponents that are the problem. So this guy right here, I'm going to pull him up, and now he's a positive. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something else. I don't think we've talked about this. See that 8/4? You could write it like this. You could write it like this. Or you could write it like that. They're all equivalent. One is way safer than the other two. How do you think I want you to write it? Where do I want that negative? Always the top. Yeah, way safer. Okay, so 8/4 is a 2, but I know it's going to be a -2. So I'm going to write it like that. Okay. And then m's on the top, 3 and 1, gives me 4. Look at your n's. Do I have more n's on top or more n's on bottom? On the bottom, how many more? 1 more. Okay. Who says this? This class really, for me, so far, has been pretty easy. Who says this has been pretty easy? Okay, so I'm just building your confidence and building your framework. And then you're going to walk out of 1010 and go, I'm a math rock star. Bring on 1050, and then you're just going to kill it. It's going to be awesome. So we're just setting a framework for you to be strong, okay? All right, awesome. Okay, here is question M. Okay, what do you notice? 2 things you notice like almost immediately. You notice the negative, and what else do you notice? The 0, right? Well, why did the 0's a 1? And 1 times 3x squared is just still 3x squared. So I'm going to knock that out. Now I'm going to do my power to a power rule. So I have 2 things inside of there. I have a 3 and I have an x. They're separate. So the 3 is going to be raised to the, everybody tell me, -2nd. And the x is going to be raised to the, talk to me, -4. 2 times -2 is -4. Now they're all negative. I feel like maybe you're not 100% on this. Are those negative exponents on the top or are they on the bottom? There's no denominator, so therefore they're on the top, right? The denominator's a 1. So pull the 3 to the negative second down, it becomes a positive. Pull the x to the negative fourth down, it becomes a positive. Tell me what I have on the top. A 1. Is that acceptable?
No.
Final answer? No. So it's 1 over, talk to me, 9x to the 4th. And you're done. Okay? Okay, look it in. Watch and listen for just a second, okay? I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to multiply him by that guy. But I can't multiply those until I first take that and raise it to the third. So I'm going to cube the first guy and then multiply them together. Who says I gotcha? I'm totally with you. I understand that. Okay. So the second parentheses, write them down and just kind of forget about it for a second. Okay. Now the exponent on the 3 is a 1 and the a is a 1. If you don't, well, let me write it down and then I'll say. Okay, so this is a 3 to the 1 times 3 is a 3. An a to the 1 times 3 is a 3. And a b to the 2 times 3 is a 6. Okay, now, if you don't want to write, 2 seconds, sorry. If you don't want to write 3 to the third, if you want to go right to whatever that number is, I'm totally good with that. I'm totally fine with that. The only problem is, please don't write down 9. Tons of people say 3 times 3 is 9. That is not the right number. What's the number? It is 27. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Now multiply. So 27 times 2 is 54. On the A's, add, multiply, or subtract. Which one? Add and get a 5. B's, 6 plus 1, 7. Done. Okay, question O. Am I going too fast? If I ever go too fast, all you have to do is raise your hand and say, could you please slow down? And I'll slow down. But I also want to finish and I also don't want to bore you to death. Okay, look at the top. The 2 is to the second, the C is to the second, the D is to the second. The bottom, the 4 is to the third, the C is to the third, and then I simplify. Okay? Numerically, what goes on the top? Can you tell me that? Number-wise, that's what that means. Tell me what number's on the top. 2 to the second is a 4. C is to the negative 1 times 2, negative 2. D to the, tell me, is it 6 or is it 8?
8.
It's 8. Multiply. On the bottom, you have a 4 to the 1 times 3 is 3. That's 4 to the third. Do you have that memorized in your head, 4 to the third? It is 64. Yeah, 64. C to the, what's that going to be? Negative 6. Good. What's screaming at you? The negatives. Let's make them nice. So bring the C to the negative second down. Bring the C to the negative 6th up. Never cancel negatives. You just move them and then evaluate. 4 and 64. 4 goes into both of those. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 64 16 times, I believe. So on the bottom, you have a 16. On the top, you have a D to the 8th. Now look at your C's. More on top or more on bottom? More on top. How many more? 4 more. That's your answer. Who says this is easy? I really feel good about this. Okay, that's what we want. Make sure you check your answers when you do your homework, okay? Oh, we're totally going to make it. I'm so happy. Okay, so you look at P and you're like, that's so bad. Let's think about this for a second. Look right here and let's think, okay? Do I want to take the 27 to the negative third and then the X and then the Y and then the Z and then the 16, the X and the Y and the Z? Do I want to do that? No, I think it's like worse, right? It's just going to be so terrible. So I'm going to leave the negative third. I'm just going to like write it almost like it's not even there. I'm ignoring it. And I'm going to clean up the top. Clean up the inside, I mean, right? How can I clean up the inside? Tell me. Negatives. You're exactly right. Start moving those negatives, right? So I have a 27 on the top and a 16 on the bottom. Okay, see the x to the second on the top, write it down. The x to the negative fifth on the bottom comes up. On the bottom, you have a y to the second. The y to the negative eighth comes down. You just have to be careful that you write everything down. On the bottom, you have that z to the fourth, but the z to the negative first comes down. So I just move things. 27 over 16. The only things that go into 27 are 1, which isn't going to help us reduce, and then 3 and 9 and 27. Do 3 or 9 go into 16? No, so it's not going to reduce. So I have 27 over 16. Then on the x's, is that 7 or is it 10? Tell me.
7.
It's 7. Good. Then on your y's, 8 and 2 is 10. On the z's, tell me. 5. And now it's all raised to the negative third. Now this is going to be like a little messy, but it's not that big of a deal because I have way less things than what I had before. Okay, 27 has an exponent of 1, as does the 16. So now the 27 is raised to the 1 times negative 3 is a negative 3. The x is 7 times negative 3, which is negative 21. The 16 is to the 1 times negative 3 is a negative 3. The y is to the negative 10 times 3, which is a negative 30. The z is to 5 times negative 3 is a negative 15. Is that scary or difficult? It's not scary. And you guys know how to multiply. Everything's negative. Big deal. What do? Switch everything, right? I know what you're going to say. You're going to ask me a question. And I don't want to answer the question because I'm going to confuse everyone. So you can ask me over here. I really can anticipate what people are going to say. I would bet $20 I know what you're going to say. So let's talk over here. I want you to let me guess first. I'm not even going to talk about it because it's going to confuse you. I was going to say something though. I don't know. Let's just keep going. So flip-flop the whole thing. So you have 16 to the positive third, y to the positive 30th, z to the 15th, over 27 to the third, and x to the 21st. So that wasn't scary or tough. You just switched everything. That's easy, right? Now grab your calculator and you go 16 to the third is 4,096. And then 27 to the third is 19,683. And then on the top, you have a y to the 30th and a z to the 15th. On the bottom, you also have an x to the 21st. Okay. Okay. We're just going to say that's it. Done. I don't think that'll reduce. I got to play with the calculator. Forget how to reduce on this thing, but I think that's it. Okay, question 2. Explain the difference. Okay, Weber State loves to have you do these kind of problems. Look at this guy, look at this guy. What's the difference? Okay, well, my advice is evaluate them. Like go, here's this guy, and then write a sentence. That's the best thing you can do. Everybody look at the guy on the left. What's that equal to?
1.
That's equal to 1. Is the guy on the right equal to 1?
No.
What is that equal to? 5. Okay, so what's the difference? Someone try to say that. See if you can say it. Thanks, honey. Yes.
Okay, because of the parentheses, it makes all of it together 1, but the 0 only goes to the x, it doesn't go to the 5, because it's not all put together, it's the 5.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so we're going to say it like this. In parenthesis, 5x to the 0, comma, the 5 and the x are raised to the 0 power. In 5x to the 0, only, finish my sentence, only the x is raised to the 0 power. Good. Okay, here we go. Next one. They love these. My advice is Evaluate the right, evaluate the left, show that they're not equal to each other, and then write a sentence. Look at the guy on the left. This exponent's a 1. So this is a 2 to the 1 times negative 1 is a negative 1. And then an x to the 3 times negative 1 is a negative 3. On the right, you have 2x to the negative third. Now I'm going to move my exponents. So I have 1 over 2 x to the third. So the 2 does come down because it has a negative exponent, whereas the 2 on the right doesn't have a negative exponent, and so it doesn't get moved down. Okay? So I would do it, and then I would write it. Okay? So I would say, in 2x to the third in parentheses to the negative first, comma, the 2 has a negative exponent and must be moved to the bottom. Okay, next one. Yes. Okay, next one. Look what this person did. They said 4 times 2 is 6. 2 to the 3 times 2 is 6. Okay? Are those equal to each other? And explain. You know what I would do? Or they said 2 times 4 is 8, I mean. Look what I would do. I'm telling you, every single time I was ever presented with a problem, I would write it like that, and I certainly think they're not going to be equal to each other, but I'm not sure. Okay, grab your calculator. Everybody go 4, and then hit your x squared, parenthesis, 2. Now the way to go 2 to the third, I know you guys know it's 2, and then you use that caret button, and then it's a 3. So go 2 to the third, close it, enter, and I get 128. So the left side is 128, and then hit 8, the caret button, 6, enter, and it's 262,144. So then that doesn't make sense. They're not equal to, right? So now you go not equal to. Is it correct? Why or why not? Well, guys, what about this? If I have x to the second times x to the third, would I ever write that as y to the fifth? Would I do that? No. What would it be equal to? X to the fifth, right? You don't change the base, okay? So I would say when multiplying expressions with exponents, you cannot or you can't change the base. That base doesn't change. The 4 has to stay a 4, the 2 has to stay a 2. Okay, last problem, we're going to make it. In the rational expression, that is the area and that's the length. Okay, so everybody write, length times width is equal to area. This is an easy question. So they told me that the length was 5x to the second, y to the second over 2z. And I'm multiplying it by some width. That's what they want to know, is what's the width. And I'm getting the area, which is 20x to the third, y to the second over 6z to the third a. So now all I have to do is figure out what to multiply by. Okay, so look how simple. What do I multiply by 5 to get 20? 4. If I have 2 x's and I need 3, I'm missing 1. If I have 2 y's and I need 2 y's, I'm good. What do I multiply by 2 to get 6? That's a 3. If I have 1 z and I need 3 z's, I'm missing a z squared. And I'm also missing my a, and that is my answer right there. Okay? Okay. Everybody stand up. Bell's almost gonna ring. So I really wanted to do this, but I haven't done it yet. I don't mean to offend anybody when I say this. I think it's important to know that everybody's different. No two people in this room are the same. And so I'm not trying to offend anyone at all. When you write on this board, you cannot write anything religious because there's a separation of church and state. I, as a teacher, could never lead you in a prayer. That's illegal. They have to be separate. Doesn't mean that I believe one way or I don't believe one way. It's that we have to respect that everybody's different and maybe not everybody believes the same. I want you to, if you don't mind, I want you to grab a marker. I want you to come up there. Try to do it in an orderly way. And I want you to write down something that you've written about in your journal that you're grateful for. Okay? So grab a marker, go write it over there, and just make sure it's appropriate and not religious. Okay? And then when people need help, then they can look at your list. If you don't want to share, you don't have to. It's personal. Try not to write the same thing that somebody else did.
Someone need a pen? Oh yeah. This one doesn't work very good, but
That's right.
Try to write it big enough people can read, okay? But I'll read it out loud. Yes, yes, be like this.
I know, right here.
why did you do it?
I was like, oh, oh my gosh, English paper.
I'm gonna cry.
We're
Wait,
gonna
we have to go to the Are you going to the main
I have to. Okay, I think if I'm supposed to, but I have to first take Abby home and then take my brother to football, but then I can come back after that. Show her the video. Oh my gosh, I was trying to explain to Abby and Kaiser. They were doing. I was like trying to say how much like hard I was laughing, and they were like I was like laughing while I was happening, and they were just like, "Are you in pain?" Like they don't get it. You have to be there.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, you guys.
How was no one put their mom in?
You guys are so awesome. Have a good day. Good job today, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, sorry. You're like.
That one doesn't.
Bye,
Students to ride bus 2018, please ride bus 394.
They're not gonna remember.
Okay, so this is what I thought you were going to say. So maybe I have to talk about this is what I thought you were going to say. Once you know that that's what you can do is you can actually make it a positive and flip everything on the inside. So that's
They did family, but
You like saw it the day. 20. Yeah, it was 20.
Was it 20? Yeah. You owe me $20.
But you
Yes,
can,
the
it will
answer to the
work.
question is yes,
Okay,
yeah.
sweet.
But I didn't want to show two ways.
Yeah.
Because it confuses people. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, guys. Have a great day. See you later, bud.